Here we have the highly anticipated Python 3. I don't really want to waste too much time on it because I have made a video on it and it doesn't really change that much between the dev server and the live server. So I'm going to talk about the characteristics really briefly. I'm going to talk about how it fits onto the planes that it's been added to, and just overall how it fits into the game and what it means for everything else. So Python 3, you can think of it basically as a all-aspect PL5 essentially. You get very similar PL5B kinematics. If you guys have used that missile before, it plays extremely similar, except now it is all-aspect. The seeker of the missile is essentially the same as an AIM-9L, so if you are thinking about flare resistance and stuff like that, just think of it as an AIM-9L. Obviously, the AIM-9L has been nerfed in terms of flare resistance, so is this missile particularly flare resistant? No, it's not. But as long as targets are keeping their afterburner on when they're trying to flare, it's still going to hit the target. That's about the extent of the flare resistance, and that's how it is for pretty much all of the missiles except the Magic 2, and of course if you want to consider the R24R or the R24T and the R27T, then those are also pretty flare resistant as well. I don't really consider them to be in the same class of missile as these other IRs, so I'm not going to count them. I did say in my last video that it had the seeker of the Magic 2, and it did, but between unfortunately the dev server and the live server, it has been changed down to the AIM-9L seeker. So the flare resistance that it had on the dev server in rear aspect is just no longer a thing, which is pretty unfortunate, and that's why it is essentially just now an all aspect PL5. Because, like I said in the beginning of the video, the kinetics of this missile, the kinetic performance of this missile is extremely similar to the PL5. They are a little bit different, but I think the PL5 is probably as close as it gets to the Python, and now it is all aspect. But the kinematic performance is actually very good for an IR missile. So what exactly do you get with the Python? Well, you get about, I don't want to give you a raw number here, so I'm going to estimate kind of on the lower end. You have about a 3-kilometer range in rear aspect on the deck against a supersonic target, as long as you're also flying supersonic when you launch the missile. I am giving you a low range here because I don't want you to be like, you said the missile had 3.5 to 4-kilometer range. It doesn't. Well, like I said, that's on the low end. It can definitely hit shots from further range, altitude, speed, target speed, angle. All of these things definitely have a play at how far your missile's actually going to be able to kill someone. I actually just hit a shot the other day that was a 5-kilometer launch at the time of shooting. Granted, the target started to pull in toward the side, I guess, so it kind of became a side aspect shot on the last about kilometer to kilometer and a half, but still pretty impressive for what is considered a close range IR missile. In a straight line, the range is better than the AIM-9L. I've had these missiles tested side by side on the same plane, shooting the missiles at the same time. There's a custom mission I'm able to see things like that with. Thanks, Jake. Shout out him. I'll link his channel down in the description below. But essentially, yeah, the Python in a straight line is faster and goes further than the AIM-9L. So the only time I would see the AIM-9L being able to actually hit shots at a further range than the Python can is maybe if your target is extremely aggressive with its maneuvering. But even then, that is a strong maybe, because the Python comes off the rail with such an energy advantage that I don't think a maneuvering target is really going to be that big of a deal for it. Like I said, it would have to be a pretty aggressively maneuvering target for the 9L to actually be able to outrange it with that sustainer. As far as head-on missile shots go compared to the 9L, for example, there are very few head-on shots that we were able to replicate consistently in which the 9L is going to hit better than the Python at close range. If you don't know, or if you hadn't kind of realized, having such extreme speed instantaneously on a missile like the Python kind of means that your close range performance is going to suffer because the missile is just going too fast. It can't really pull the angle it needs in the time frame it needs before it's basically already covered the distance to the target. And so the close range performance of the Python does leave a little bit to be desired. But in head-on aspect shots, at least, there really isn't that many shots that the slower missiles are going to hit that the Python isn't also going to hit. You know, I'm talking about head-on, little bit offset angle in which the missile's got to kind of pull lead straight off of the rail before the target actually closes the distance enough to basically not allow the missile to pull anymore. And the only missile that I think is going to be consistently better at the more close range head-on shots is something like an R60 that has extremely good close range performance. To begin with, it's a good bit slower than the Python. So yeah, maybe that one might be able to consistently hit shots that the Python can't. As far as rear aspect goes, there's a lot of missiles that can perform better than the Python at close range because you get significantly more time for that missile to start pulling. There's not so much closure rate, but the Python makes it a lot of closure rate. And so yeah, you do have to lead the missile a lot. It's not going to pull that hard on its own. Yes, it's a 40G missile. Yes, it's more than... What are you growling about? Yes, it's a 40G missile. Yes, it is a lot more G pull than all the other missiles, but still, it is going extremely fast off of the rail, and that 10 extra Gs... Excuse you? The 10 extra Gs doesn't always make up for the extreme speed that you get with the Python. All in all, as far as IR missiles are concerned, I think the Python is the best in the game. That is, of course, not including missiles like the 2014 and the 2070. You can find the Python mostly in the Israeli tech tree with the F-16A Netz, the Kfir C7, the Kfir C2, and then it is also in the Chinese tree on the J8F. The J8F gets it with an HMD sight so that you can kind of slay the missile seeker with your mouse sight. The main point of HMD really is to increase your close range performance, which the Python doesn't really have any of anyway, so it really doesn't change much having HMD, only when you have those rare situations that you want to shoot off like 3 missiles in extreme short succession to be able to hit all those targets at once. As far as the Israeli planes, it has made them a good bit more competitive on those that have them. It doesn't change how you play the planes, it just makes them better at what they already do. And as such, I actually think the F-16A Netz is probably my favorite top tier right now, just because I think it's pretty damn fun. It's definitely not the most meta plane, it's not the most competitive plane. That's still, in my opinion, the MiG-29 with the 27 ERs. You could make an argument for the F-14B, and I would not argue against that. It's just your opinion. I think the MiG-29 is still better, but I feel like the F-16A Netz is kind of like the J-70 experience part 2, and that's pretty much what I've been waiting for with the F-16 all along, and now I kind of finally feel like that's it, at least with the Netz. You get a really, really good flight model. It's actually somewhat maneuverable, unlike the ADF Sparrow carrying F-16s, so the flight performance is second to none at top tier, and now you actually get some pretty competitive missiles to go along with it. So, like I said, I feel like it's the J-70 Part 2. It's the playstyle that I enjoy most. I like slinging IR missiles, and so I've been having a lot of fun with that. I'm just going to leave that there. That's my overall thoughts and opinions on the Python. I'm going to leave you with this dogfight that I thought was kind of cool. I just watched it in spectator mode versus just this random teammate versus 2 enemy players. And it's not too often you see somebody competent enough to handle a situation like this. So I figured I'd include it. Shout out to you, Mr. Scatfill, whatever that means. Sounds bad, but good job, good fight. And I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you later.